and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 273, and today's date is January 25th, 2014, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Before I get started, I just want to thank those people who donated to the site. It does help support the x22report.com site and the people, which is the forum running on this site. And for those people who have not received the alerts, I am still working on the email system. There is a bug in it, and the manufacturer, I've been emailing them, and if they don't respond soon, I'm just going to go and I'll have to purchase a different system to use because I tried to roll it back to the previous version. It did not work, and I got other different errors. So right now I'm kind of stuck, and if it doesn't work, I've already found two others, and I'll see the cost of those, and I'll go ahead and implement it and transfer all your information into the new system. Let's get into the economic collapse news. And we understand that the European nations, they are in so much debt, it is absolutely ridiculous. The private Western central bankers, they like to put every single country into as much debt as possible. This way they have to give up their natural resources and they transfer them over to the private Western central bank. And right now in Italy, they need to raise capital. And the way they're doing this, well, they are going to sell off 40% of the post office as the government tries to bring down its huge public debt level. And we're seeing this all over the place. We're seeing Spain jump into the Social Security reserves, into the pension reserves, where the United States has done the same thing. They raided Social Security already. All that is gone. What's left there is IOUs, and we're seeing now in the Eurozone, in many of these countries, they need to sell off different parts of their country and their assets to build the revenue because the people are just not working. They are not bringing in the revenue to sustain the debt, and as more and more people become unemployed, it just will not be sustainable at this time. Now, here in the U.S., we're seeing that things are actually getting worse in the retail sector, and I've mentioned this many times in my other reports. If you haven't heard it, go back to the previous reports and you can hear what I've been talking about. And right now, Walmart is laying off 2,300 employees in Sam's Club. Now, this is the discount shopping warehouse, and they're laying off 2,300 people. So what do we know? We know Macy's is laying off. We know JCPenney is laying off. We know Sam's Club is laying off. That is just those three. That's 6,800 people right there without work. Think about all the other retail stores because they're closing. Many of the Sears, think about it, their main flagship store plus all their other stores, many of the other smaller retailers are closing a lot of their stores. There are going to be a lot of people without work, and we're heading into very tough times for a lot of people, and there is no extension for unemployment benefits right now. Now, in HSBC, they are restricting large cash withdrawals. HSBC is imposing restrictions on large cash withdrawals, raising a number of red flags. HSBC customers have been prevented from withdrawing large amounts of cash because they could not provide evidence of why they wanted it. HSBC admitted it has not informed customers of the change in policy, which was implemented in November for their own good. And I reported on this where there were HSB and other banks, you couldn't transfer money outside of the United States, and very large withdrawals had to be explained. But again, this is your money. You don't need to explain to them why you want your money. And of course, as one customer said, you shouldn't have to explain to your bank why you want that money. It's not theirs, it's yours. And of course, this is what everyone believes, but again, according to the FDIC and Bank of England document, every single person now is no longer a depositor, they are a creditor. So in reality, eventually this will not be your money. And one customer said, when we presented them with the withdrawal slip, they declined to give us the money because we could not provide them with a satisfactory explanation of what the money was for. They wanted a letter from the person involved. That is absolutely ridiculous, and we can see what's happening is they're trying to keep all the money in the bank. And I've said this before. If, in my opinion, which this is what I do, I only keep enough in the banks right now for paying my bills. Most of it is invested in precious metals, and I keep cash on hand. I do not like keeping it in the bank because I am very worried that I will wake up, which I know is going to happen, just like the Cyprus people, and there will be bank capital controls in effect, and they will only allow me to withdraw $300 or so. And this is what I'm worried about. And every single country now followed the template of the FDIC Bank of England document, which they created in December 2012. It is on the x22report.com site. If you go to Resources Documents, it is right there. The European nations have it. Australia has it. Switzerland has it. Canada has it. Everyone has it because they understand what is about to happen. Now, I've been harping on this over and over and over again, that the main objective of the government right now is to disarm the American people, and we're seeing a buildup of mass shootings. Don't you think it's odd that all we're seeing every other week is a mass shooting in Purdue, a mass shooting in South Carolina, a shooting in Long Island? Prior to 2014, we saw a mass shooting in a New Jersey mall, and now we have a mass shooting in the Maryland mall. And we're saying that 3 are reported dead, 4 are injured, and the shooter, of course, is dead right now. This is being built up so they can get that UN Arms Treaty and the Dianne Feinstein bill that are both pending in the Senate passed. This is what they are going to do. And right now I saw today that this was on the news for quite a while. They're making a big deal. They're continuing the coverage. I don't know if they'll be using this one. We will know, because if the president comes out and says he wants to, push this gun control initiative forward, this would be the one. If not, we will see in the one that's even worse than what we saw today. And this, I believe, is what they are definitely building up to, because you do not keep bills pending in the Senate unless you are planning on passing them. He purposely asked the Senate to keep the Dianne Feinstein bill pending there. He also created all the executive orders, and these executive orders support the bills in the Senate. And there's only one reason you do this, is because they are planning on pushing these through, because they need to get as many weapons as they possibly can away from the American people. And I've said this before, when these do pass and they say, oh, that weapon you cannot have, this weapon you cannot have, 80% of the people, just like we saw in New York and other states, will go to their local police station and hand them in, because they are not, under this new law that they're going to pass, they can't have them, and they only have to worry about the 20% of the people. And you can see that they are definitely building up for this. And right now in Afghanistan, President Karzai said to the U.S., listen, we are not going to sign this bilateral security deal with the United States if Washington does not guarantee peace in Afghanistan. And I'm going to tell you right now, the United States central bankers, they do not want peace in Afghanistan. They want to grow the poppy fields. They want the strategic location. They understand there's a huge copper deposit there. China's already in Afghanistan. China's in the Middle East. China's in Africa. We are already there at war with China. Just the larger population doesn't realize it yet. And this goes on to say, if the U.S. is not willing to accept our condition of the bilateral security agreement, they can leave any time, and Afghan will go without foreigners, he said. Karzai also blamed the United States for pursuing wrong policies in the so-called fight against terrorism, because there is no terrorism there. It's people who want their country back. They want the private Western central bankers out of there, the U.S. government out of there. And this is what's happening in the Middle East, and this is what's happening in Thailand, the Ukraine, just different, depending on what side the U.S. and the central bankers are on. This is happening in all these different places. And we can see that the United States is not going to leave. They're going to have to be forced out to actually leave that area. Now, Moving on to Finland and Sweden. Finland and Sweden view the building of a special defense relationship as reinforcing their non-aligned position to remain outside of NATO. They do not want to join NATO, and what's happening here is they're combining their forces. They're putting more money into the defenses, and right now the Swedes' support for NATO membership has risen from 30 to 36% year on year, but 40% of the Swedes oppose NATO membership, while 24% are undecided, and they do not want to join NATO at this time. Now, moving on to the Ukraine, there has been another warning, just like we saw in the Middle East, travel advisory, locking down the embassies, warning of civil disturbance and terrorists and all this. And what happened? We saw the Syria event occur. Africa, travel advisory, get the people out, warning to Americans. What do we see? All of a sudden, fighting broke out. The U.S. is on one side, the Chinese and the rebels are on the other side, who want their country back. And we're seeing this happen. The Ukraine, the government there has signed a deal with Russia and not with the private Western central banks. So right now, the United States issued a travel alert for the Ukraine Friday, pointing to escalating violence and warning U.S. citizens to stay away from the protest. U.S. citizens are advised to avoid all protests, demonstrations, and large gatherings, State Department said. Alert valid through March 24th. The situation was unpredictable and could change quickly, which we know. This is why they issued the alert, because now they're going to step it up and things are going to change drastically, because we have the private Western central bankers and the CIA pushing the rebels, pushing the protesters forward, and then on the other side you have the Russian side and the Ukraine government, and this is what is happening. The central bankers, the U.S. government, want Ukraine because it is in a strategic location. It's right on the Black Sea. It's also bordering along the Russian states. And they want this area, and they want to push the debt forward in this area, and this is why this warning has come out right now. Now, I've been saying this, that we are going to have some type of false flag event, and it's building. We can see it's building, and they're making their case with Syria. We saw they're building the case with the Syrian Electronic Army, making us believe that they're cyber attacking and they're putting up messages about China, which they would never do. That wouldn't be what Syria is interested in. That is a complete message for the American people, for the American government, and again, the attack by the Syrian Electronic Army did not do that cyber attack. That wasn't them, but it's being blamed on them to build the case that we're going into Syria. We also understand that they're having the Geneva II talks, and they're trying to get both sides, the rebels and the Syrian government, together. It is not working out well, and again, I don't think these talks are going to go anywhere. And then they're going to take it to the next step. And there's intel right now stating that, Assad, I've said this many times, that he has chemical weapons hidden. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already here in the United States. And right now, they've caught a Russian teen charged with possessing a weapon of mass destruction. A teenage Russian national was arrested, and if you notice, now they're demonizing Russia, they're demonizing China, they're demonizing Syria, North Korea, because these are the countries that do not belong to the private Western central bank. They have their own central banks within their country, and most of them are government-run. And this is saying that this teenager that was arrested possessed weapons of mass destruction, and he has that they found these bombs in a suitcase. They found assorted bomb-making materials, and they don't know what he was going to use this for. But you can see how they're building this up. And also, you have to remember that we have all these warnings in Sochi. We have warships standing by to evacuate the athletes there. We have travel advisories. We have terrorist warnings. We had terrorists hit that area. And you can tell they are just completely building this case. Now, there was some information that came out, and we have to take it and look at it and say this could be a possibility. Because in my other reports, and I've been leading up to this, that they could use a chemical weapon attack here within the United States and blame it into Syria, because their goal is the same. They really want to get into Syria, and they want to get into Iran, and they are building the case to do this. Now, we know the Super Bowl is coming up next Sunday, and it's being held in the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. And there was a letter, and I saw this on Before It's News, that a person who worked in the MetLife Stadium, who was, I guess, refurbishing it, saying that they've been implementing and putting bombs in strategic locations to trap the people in the stadium. And the CO2 cartridges that are used, I guess, for soft drinks will be loaded with some type of chemical weapon. And they're saying that this is going to be spectacular. This is going to be a huge false flag event. Do I know if this is going to happen? No, but this would shock the nation, and we'll have to see how this plays out. And again, if it does happen, we know exactly what's going on. We know exactly what is happening, and or something else could occur within the United States. And we know it's going to happen. We know something's going to happen in Sochi. We know something's going to happen in Ukraine. They are building this up because they need to get the war started to cover this collapse. And this is how it will start, because they understand they can't keep this system going much longer. It is getting more and more difficult. Countries are fighting back. The people are trying to push the private Western central bankers out of their country in the Middle East, in Africa. The Ukraine is fighting against those private Western central bankers. Thailand, who is the puppet regime of the central bankers, U.S. government, are fighting against those rebels, and we can see what is happening. I mean, in the Middle East, they said any tanker that comes in and tries to fill up with their oil is going to be blown out of the water, because they're not using the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency. We also see in Iran, with these peace talks, about the smoke and mirrors illusion of the nuclear talks, which has nothing to do with what they're doing. They're infiltrating their banks in the back end, trying to put all the natural resources on the U.S. dollar. That's why the IMF is there. This is why they're concerned about Putin going into there and making a deal with Iran and bypassing the dollar, because they do not have the systems set up yet. But we need to be prepared and ready for what is coming, and something huge is definitely coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.